Welcome to Power Fridays Live, the channel that aims to make a difference in the world through transformation, spiritual growth, and for entrepreneurs. Our vision is to empower individuals to live their lives with purpose and to make a positive impact on the world. We believe that power and purpose are the driving forces behind success and fulfillment in both personal and professional life. Through our broadcast, we discuss business strategies and techniques that can help entrepreneurs achieve their goals and take their business to the next level. We believe that through sharing knowledge and experience, we can empower each other to succeed and make a difference in the world. Now here's our host, Janelle Pulley.
All right. We're about to go live.
Hello, thank you so much for joining Power Fridays Live. This is our very last show for the year 2023. Welcome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Devon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mr. Harmon, can you hear me?
Is my mic on?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
For some reason, I can't hear you.
Okay, so it could be an issue with your sound input in or out, but we do welcome you. We are super excited.
Can you hear me?
December 29th, 2023.
I can hear you. I don't think you could hear us. Janelle, give us 1 second. Let's get this together.
Yeah. I'll let you guys
Yeah, you go ahead and talk about.
And this is a live show, live broadcast with Power Fridays Live. I'm so excited, Devon. Thank you so much for holding it down. And 2023 has been an amazing time. And we are so excited that we've made it this far. It is now December the 29th, 2023. We have with us a very special guest, Anthony Harmon, who is a remarkable individual who is the president of the NAACP, other national organizations, and so we're super excited to have Anthony with us tonight. His track record of success is super duper long, and he's an amazing person who is going to unleash the power and have a great conversation in leadership tonight. We are very thankful and grateful that we've made it to the end of 2023. Successfully, and we're very happy, thankful, and blessed. So thank you, Devon, for taking care of Power Fridays Live. And Anthony Harmon, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm hoping that you can hear me. I was having some technical difficulties.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Great. My computer wasn't working, so I'm on my phone at the moment. So.
Oh, okay, very great. Well, yeah, technology is great when it works.
When it works, absolutely.
Yes. So we're so excited to have you with us as we close out the year 2023. We know that a lot of vision. You're a man with many visions, I guess, and goals that you set forth in your life. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started and leading? We'll just take a little journey through your track record of success of being president of the NAACP and directors of national organizations and being on the forefront of our future teachers organization as well.
Well, first of all, let me start by saying thank you so much for having me on. Thank you, Devon, for making the arrangements and making it possible. And how I certainly am honored and humbled to be a part of the discussion tonight. My journey began in the 80s, late 80s. I started my teaching career in 1987 at this little school called the High School of Graphic Communication Arts. Young teacher, wanted to make a change, make a difference in the world. I'll start by saying nobody enters the teaching profession to become a millionaire or to make a lot of money, right? It has to be a love, a vocation, if you will. That's what I had, that drive in my early days in teaching. Well, and today as well. But that drive and wanting to make a difference, not only in the lives of the students that I serve, but in my community as well. Throughout that journey, I was fortunate to get involved with the Teachers Union, known as the United Federation of Teachers, a union that represents over 200,000 members, in New York City in our public school system. Teachers, secretaries, guidance counselors, social workers, any non-administrative title within the Department of Education is pretty much a member of the United Federation of Teachers. And I was able to become an active participant, in the union and the union's works and dealings, while simultaneously keeping myself rooted and grounded in my community. And I think that's where I had the best of kind of both worlds, if you will. I was able to get involved in civil rights and social justice issues. Even when I was a high school teacher, I made sure that, high school students, that they were registering to vote when they turned 18 years old, making sure that they were involved in different leadership activities and leadership programs. I was the advisor for one of our vocational students organizations for many, many years, because I wanted my experiences that I had as a student and as an instructor, to be shared with the students that I taught. And fortunately, we were able to take students, on conferences, on trips, from here to, clear across town. And sometimes it was those students' first times, going outside of the borough, going out of New York City. Sometimes it was the first time that they were on a plane, and staying at a hotel, and things that sort. Because I think the classroom and the learning experience goes beyond the four walls of a school. And I think it's real important that we all realize that, and that however we can make a difference in the life of a child, it's important that we do just that.
I agree.
Yeah, and shortly thereafter, I jumped in the teachers union with both feet. Jumped into the civil rights movement with both feet. I stopped teaching, I want to say about 2002, to join the United Federation of Teachers full time. At that point, I was an assistant to one of the vice presidents for elementary schools. And I did that for a number of years. And then there was a change in leadership. And then the new president at that point asked if I would take on a new role and become a director for one of the departments, which is community and parent engagement, which I thought was like directly up my alley. I was able to marry both worlds, right? And take that love for my community. And I think I kind of call myself the consciousness of the union, right? Trying to make sure that we always try to do what I think is in the best interest of the community, and making sure that the community's voice is heard and understood, in all of our talks. Shortly thereafter, I did that for a number of years, and then the president at 5-6 years ago asked if I would become the director of staff for the teachers union, and that's overseeing approximately 540 employees in all 5 boroughs, and these are the people that represent the teachers in the school system. So we have about 1,200 schools, and these people represent the teachers in those buildings, in those 1,200 schools. And while I was doing that, I was also working my civil rights issues and my civil rights, movement, working closely with the New York State Conference president, Hazel Dukes, and I decided to run for president of the New York chapter, the NAACP, which my chapter, my branch, is the oldest branch in the organization's history, starting out, in the early 1900s. And I decided to run and successfully ran. And I've been the president of the branch for the last 8 years. 8 years. And coupled with that is like a bunch of other organizations that I've also
yes.
become a part of.
Yes, we love your bio, and the leadership that you have to be recognized with the United Federation of Teachers, and even with your community with the NAACP is so remarkable. And I know that with the national NAACP, the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, with you being young, this is what question I was like, this is what I have to ask him. It's not a loss. The civil rights movement, it's not lost. It's not dying off. Can you tell us how you keep the hope alive, and not to steal the better words from Reverend Jesse Jackson? Can you tell us, how you do keep hope alive within the organization?
Only thing I tell people is just to stay woke. If you look at what's happening in our country and all around us, right? And a lot of things that happens because people don't do anything, right? We have to make our voices heard. We have to let make young people understand help young people to understand rather that their voice matters, that they matter in this whole electoral process, and that's done through voting. And to hold on one second, I have to let my dog out. I'm sorry.
Hey, you are a well-rounded individual. You don't need the dog. It's important. So
Right, exactly. Otherwise, I have something else to deal with.
yes,
Right.
you prioritize. Priorities as a leader is rule number one.
That's
Leadership
exactly it.
priorities.
That's exactly it. So I remind our young people all the time that there's a space for them. Oftentimes, when I walked into different circles within the labor movement and in the civil rights movement, I was the youngest person, and I'm in my 50s. I was the youngest person in the room, and that should never be.
Mm.
That should never be. We need to find a space and find a way to get young people and bring young people along. And when we bring them along, it's not like go sit in a corner. No, we want you to be active participants in this movement. So as part of that, I started something what we call emerging leaders within the NAACP and within the labor movement, where we took young people in their 20s, in their 30s, away for a conference. We wanted to hear what they thought, hear what they were experiencing, and then provide some type of resources, and support for them. The organization has, and it was my idea and vision to make the initial thing happen. But I told the young people, if they're going to continue, it's going to be up to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they've taken on the role, and they've, done a couple of things. They just had a big symposium not too long ago, getting involved with other organizations, and young people are doing it. I have to tell you, I tell people, young people are more courageous than I ever was, right? In my youth, right? Because one of the things that we to pride ourselves on, I've never been arrested. I've never been arrested. Young people today is like, I'll get arrested, right?
Yes.
And I feel that really within the Black Lives Matters movement or whatever, right? Those young people, they weren't unapologetic. They were bold. They were out there. They were, lifting up their voices and doing what they can, to make. And in some cases, if it meant being arrested, guess what? They got arrested. They got out. But and I just love that boldness and that unapologetic and sincere, genuine. Wanted to make a difference, in our communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can appreciate you for that, and thank you so much for taking that lead and taking on that leadership and not allowing, that what happened in the 60s, which is still going on today in 2023 and going into 2024, that the struggle continues. So thank you so much for being a
Absolutely.
leader in the struggle.
And when we look at, like, as I said, when we look at what's happening in Florida, the book banning and, teachers can't say this, teachers can't do this, taking away women's rights to choose. These are fights that we fought a long time ago, right? And
Yes.
they're rearing the ugly head. It's ugly head again. And I think it's important that we, call it out when we see it, and then we act, right? Because leadership is not just a word. It's a verb. It means action. It means doing something. And oftentimes I tell people we can't rest on our laurels. We can't rest on the things that we did in the past, right? Oh, in 1973, I did this. In 1984, I did that. And the songwriter said, what have you done for me lately?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to do as leaders, right? We have to constantly look to see what we can do. We can't rest on what I did, last year, last month. What am I doing tomorrow? And what's the plan 3 months from now? And what's the plan for next year? And what's the plan for, my 5-year plan? You have to constantly think of, in those terms. If I'm the youngest person and I'm 50, 50 plus ish, thank you. And I'm the youngest person in the room, that's a problem. That's a real problem, right? So I make it my business. I make it my mission to make sure that we bring young people along for this journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've inspired me greatly just to know that, because, my parents, I can look to them as my leaders. And, who were the leaders in your life that really instilled in you to say, hey, I want to be in the forefront and I don't want to be in the back of the bus, for a better context.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there were plenty. I'll never forget, my 7th grade teachers. And I have to give them a lot of credit, and I'm still in contact with some of them to this day. who were really like they inspired me, right? You know, to able to become a teacher, and then B, you know, to help to make a difference in the lives, you know, of the our children that we served in our communities. There's also my pastor, and you know, at my church made a big influence. But you know, then I had, you know, a grandmother who was just she was a praying grandmother. You know, I don't even know what level of education she stopped at, but I know she, you know, didn't go to college. I know, you know, she wasn't, you know, probably a high school graduate, but her, you know, her words of wisdom and how she did things, you know, and sometimes in the simplest of ways made a huge impact, you know, in my life. Uh, um, there was, and there's a scripture that says faith comes by hearing, right? And what we hear. So we have to be careful about who we let get into our ears and plant these seeds, you know. And I'll never forget the early days of Barbara Jordan speaking at the Democratic Convention, you know, in the 1980s. I'll never forget Jesse Jackson in the early days when he was running for president, you know, and that level of that momentum, that enthusiasm that somebody was running that looked like me for president of the United States of America. That was like empowering to me, right? You know, and I was a young kid. I think I might have been too early to work his campaign, but I was able to go and hang out and hear and see and do some of the things, go after school and, you know, put flyers up in the communities. At a young, early age, I think I was like 16, 17 years old at the time when he was running for president. But it was inspiring and it was uplifting, you know, to see this young, charismatic, you know, Black man, like really putting his head in the ring. And coupled with that, I think we can also throw in Shirley Chisholm, right? You know, our first Black woman in Congress. It's those people and hearing their stories and reading about them. And when I got the opportunity to speak to some of these, because I think there's some living legends among us that just don't get the credit, you know, that they deserved. In my later years, one of those heroes has become Bayard Rustin, somebody who I thought, you know, who I think the history didn't do him justice, but one of the leaders in the civil rights movement, you know, and played a pivotal role in that March on Washington. That everyone kind of, you know, Martin Luther King, and who gave a phenomenal speech at that march, but the brainchild, the mind behind that, you know, two gentlemen, A. Philip Randolph and, you know, Bayard Rustin. And Bayard Rustin, even more so, who couldn't take a lead front because he was a Black man, he was a gay Black man. Wasn't popular at the time to be out in front and do those types of things, organizing and so forth or whatever. But he, you know, stood the test, you know, and was able to play a pivotal role in that civil rights movement and that March on Washington. So there's several people that that inspire me. And then when I see young people like Devon, who was one of my students at one point, you know, to see him doing and being, that's also inspiring and uplifting, right? You know, to know that you played like a little part, a little role, and, you know, in that, you know, it's fulfilling.
You know, it's funny because we develop passion for things often by the people that interacts with us, right? My passion from leadership is directly comes from being a part of Mr. Harmon's organization, being, you know, taken under his wings when I was in high school, and he's inspired me. Like I remember one time we were in his office handling business, and his phone is ringing off the ring. He got a chancellor call him. I need you this. The principal calling. I need you to do this. This person called the mayor's office calling. I need you to do this. And I turned around to Mr. Harmon and I said, Mr. Harmon, how do you manage all this? Like, how are you? Like, these people just calling you, you're not losing your mind? And he's like, listen, you know, you take everything in and then you make a decision of, you know, what needs to be done and the priority needs to be handled in. Everybody's emergency isn't yours. You know what I mean? And so much of what Mr. Harmon has taught me and instilled in me and mold me has guided my life. It's what inspires me to want to be a leader to others, to be, you know, an important person in my community, not to just sit behind closed door and watch things happen, but to go out there and make things happen. So as I'm sitting here listening to you talk about your story and how you came, it's very inspiring, because I am understanding that, everything is, it's a trickle down, right? The people that
Right.
inspired you cause you to become who you are. And when you talk about people that don't get credit for it, let's talk about you and all the other teachers that take care to really invest time and energy into these kids in these inner cities. Because you go outside of the city is a different ball game, because they have the resources and all the things that's necessary, because they pay higher taxes, so they're able to have all the resources that goes into the schools, right? But
Right.
um, in the inner city is a little challenging, because you're trying to split all those resources with a number of people. So the people that runs the school, the teachers, becomes a very important part of what that child's experience ultimately will be. And when it's done right, like Mr. Harmon did it with me and so many of my friends, you turn out to be great people. I could think of my guy Wilton. He's amazing. He's a movie editor in Hollywood right now, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because this man took us under his wing and like, yo, y'all gonna do this, stop playing, get it done. And that's why we're here today. So I have to personally thank you. And it's incredible to see, you know, where it all came from tonight, and really understand that, my success is in direct proportion into your excellence.
And thank you so much for saying that, Devon. I really appreciate that. And he's right. My office was constantly flooded with kids all day, every day.
Mhm.
Even when if I had to, if I was sick, it was like the world came to an end at the school, right? Because like Mr. Harmon's not here today,
Mhm.
but they were constantly in my office, and I always said, if you're going to be here, you're going to be doing something, right? So
Mhm. Yep.
let's get some things done. Work on the speech, work on some writing skills, work on something, but
Mhm.
you're gonna get something done, while you're here. And I tell you, when I left the school, it was like one of maybe the hardest things that that I had to have done, career wise, right? Because at that school, I mean, it was, touching the lives of so many, young people at that school, and it may have been 1,200 students at the school.
Mhm.
And when the offer was presented to me to leave the building and to start working at the union, a friend of mine said, Anthony, look at how many more lives you can affect in this role.
Mhm.
How much more you can do in this role. And it kind of eased the decision making process. But at one point, it was just like, well, I don't know. I mean, I love my kids. I mean, I love I love what I was doing. But when the opportunity presented itself, and I guess that's the other thing, in terms of leadership, right? Being at the right time, at the right place, and all of those things, have to add up, right? And as I said, I was fortunate, to teach at that school and be involved with, and to touch so many young people. And in this role that I'm now, and I'm supporting teachers who in turn affect students in their schools, right?
Mhm.
So we're dealing
Right.
with a system with like 1.1 million children, right? And to know
Wow.
that I play some role, in that. Oftentimes, there's many challenges, these teachers are facing, particularly now with the number of asylum seeker children and the immigrant, the population that's coming to our cities. Those kids are going to school, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
oftentimes without the resources and support that they need. So teachers are doing what they can. I had one teacher tell me that they bought Rosetta Stone to help them learn Spanish so that they can communicate with some of the children, because in many cases there's not a Spanish speaking paraprofessional or a Spanish speaking adult in the classroom. So teachers are doing whatever they have to do to help and to serve their children. Um, the other leadership roles, and I have to tell you, I've been blessed. I think I've never done an interview for any job that I've ever had.
Mm.
Someone said, let your work speak for you,
Itself, right.
right? And people just came to me with job offers. When I started teaching, the the school, they knew who I was because I was a graduate of my high school that I taught at.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh yeah, Anthony, come on board. Once I got my teacher for this, come on board. And while I was there, I was doing something, right? And then the union recognized the work that I was doing, right? And they said, come on board. And then the president of the union said, well, come on board and do something more. And I've just been blessed. But part of that blessing came with, a sacrifice, right? It's just not because I look so good, well, maybe, but but because I'm from a school and I'm from a day in age when we used to say something like, my word is bond, right?
Right.
It's something that come hell or high water, I'm going to make sure that I do it. So if I tell you that I'm coming to that rally to support you, it has to be like a thunderstorm, a hurricane, or something like that, where I can't be there to support you, or some real, something real to happen, or whatever, right? If there's some actions or activities to be done, right? I'm making sure that I'm there, that I'm a part of it. If there's phone banking, to support a particular candidate that's running for office, if it's attending a rally, if it's, going to the office and licking some stamps and putting some envelopes together to do a mailing. We don't do that anymore, but sending out an email or do an email blast, I think is what we're doing now. But I'm there for it, right? So there's a sacrifices of time and energy and things of that sort. And, your gifts will make room for you. I'm a believer in that. And if you put in the work and you put in the time and the energy and the effort, things, will happen. Someone will recognize the work that you do, the value that you bring to the table, and recognize you for it.
And that speaks volume, because it ultimately, this leadership stuff depends on the person that you are. Ultimately, it comes down. I love how you said, you've never did an interview. Your work spoke for you, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm remembering as one of my teachers, you never really clocked out. Like when school was over, you're not like most teachers. Well, my 9 to 5, 5 o'clock. See y'all tomorrow.
Right.
It continued, right? It continued.
Right.
We was in the office working, getting work done till 5, 6 o'clock. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If we needed you, we had a phone. We could have picked up the phone and call you, and we would get you after hours, right? And I think that passion for what you do and understanding, and I'm in marketing, so bear with me, understanding your market, right? And what their needs are, is very important. And that's what I got from it, right? That's what I received, and I think that's one of the reasons you're so very successful at what you do, because you have that passion and you don't clock out. Somebody said to me a long time ago, he said, find something you love doing and make a career out of it, and you'll never work a day in your life, right? And that's what I get from you when I look at you and all your accomplishment and all you have done for myself and my other students that was at the school with me. And what I've known of what you've accomplished so far is that passion was always there. It doesn't matter what it is, that passion. And when we talk about leadership, the importance of having that passion for what you do is important. Anytime you're just doing it for the money or just to pass time, your leadership is not going to be that great, right? You're not going to get the results you're hoping to get. So one of the things our listeners, I would love them to understand, is you have to be passionate about what you're doing.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, if you don't have the passion, if you don't care about, the work, right? Just pack up your stuff and go home, right? People, I learned, in my early days of teaching, again, like, kids don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care.
Exactly.
If kids know that you care about them, that you genuinely care about them, they will go above and beyond, above and beyond, you know, in their work, and they just need to know that you care, and that it's genuine, right? It's not the superficial thing. It's that you really, really care about them. And once kids realize that, the battle is done. The other piece I tell people, like more than half the battle, in any of this stuff, is showing up and being a presence, right? I tell people, like, if you can just show up, even when people don't, they're tired, just come to work, right? If you come to work, you're 70% of the 70% of the job is done. Come to work, show up, and all the time. It's one of the things I try to drill in people, right? Your presence, makes a difference, and let's not take that for granted, right? It make your presence in your home makes a difference. Being a father to your children, being an active member, in the family, in the community, being a part of the block association, knowing who your neighbors are. I mean, I live on a block, and some people don't even know who their neighbors are, like who lives next door to them, right? Don't know their names, don't know anything. Be an active part, of your community, and that, magnifies, to becoming an active member, in our city, and it just goes on and on. It's a ripple effect, right? About really making a difference. I'm really thankful, for the opportunities and, that I've had. I've traveled, the globe. I've gone to Israel, as an ambassador for education, when I was teaching. I've been able to go to, South Africa. I've been able to go to London. I've been able to go to, I've traveled the globe, for the work that I believe in, the civil rights and social justice issues. And again, lending my voice wherever I can. Oftentimes, in my other life, another part of my life, I should say, I serve as the International Executive Vice President for an organization called the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. And I'm not afraid. I'm not uncomfortable saying black. It's part of who I am. But this is an organization that seeks to build leadership capacities, for blacks in the labor movement, right? And the organization is all 50 states, and it's international, Canada, Africa, what have you. But it's about empowering workers, not young people. Well, some of them are young, but workers, and helping them to understand, the role that they can and should be playing, in the labor movement. Everyone needs to be an active. This is not a spectator sport. It's you got to participate. You have to participate, in this work, and we've done everything from helping them to understand. And I, as I'm saying this, I'm reflecting back on my own life when I was a person, right? And Devon, when we would teach, parliamentary procedure and public speaking and how to set an agenda and those things that you need in order to be successful. And that didn't happen in the classroom, by the way, right? That happened outside the classroom, but we were able to be in a role in a space, where we could do that type of stuff. So now when I hear, Congress, or when I see the Senate or whatever, and they're, ruling somebody out of order and they're making a motion, I understand what that is, right? And our young people understand what that is, right? The public speaking that young people did, that you're able to set an agenda.
Right.
That makes sense, and preparing for a business meeting, all of those things, right? Make a difference. And as I'm saying this, and I'm teaching, as we're teaching this to some of our people that are in the labor movement, and these are not just teachers, by the way. When I talk about the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, they're hospital workers, they're sanitation workers, they're any type of labor, people are part of this organization, and when we have our conferences, so we try to instill and we try to encourage them to run for office too, right? Because it's important, that a lot of people, hey, you talk about this diversity and inclusiveness and all of this other stuff. Let's start putting, making this a reality. and encouraging folks to run for office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, this is beautiful because this makes me think about when you started and you was talking about, you know, the younger kids want to know that they're being heard, putting all these programs in place for the younger kids, because my understanding of how the government system work is in direct proportion to the organization that I was part of with Mr. Harmon, you know, as our leadership or, you know, our advisor. And it makes it simple for me to understand when I see it on TV or when they talking about a bill and how it works, because I went through that process. And we have to start really investing and educating these younger kids from early, so that when they get to the older age like myself or younger, they know and understand how our government works, so they can take action and make the changes that's necessary. And we really have to give credit to all the people that came before us, like Mr. Harmon and those before him, Malcolm X, Martin birthday coming up in a few weeks. You know what I mean? We really have to give credit, because it really hurts me when you hear and cut it and educate these young kids too, because it really hurts me when you hear them say, you know, that don't have nothing to do with me. That was then, this is now. You know what I'm saying? Because these freedoms we enjoy, people put their life on the line. You know, some were killed, hanged, imprisoned for these freedoms that we take for granted. And we gotta, you know, really educate people, let them know, you know, don't waste your life. Do something great with your life, because a lot of people die just for you to have the opportunities that you have. And while we know where it's systematic, right, and we know there's still problems, and we're still trying to make changes, let's not take for granted what, you know, what has been accomplished so far. So let's not waste our life. Let's take it to the next level. They have passed the baton, so to speak, to us, and let's pick up that baton and take it to the next level. So yeah, it's huge.
And absolutely, I mean, and that's one of the things I think. When you asked the question earlier, you know, how do we get these young people? If we're not careful, we're gonna repeat the, you know, the this
History.
stuff from the past. We're gonna repeat the history, right? You know, I see like this stuff that's happening, and I'm like, you know, people should be like, you know, up in arms, right? You know, and ready to. A woman's right to choose. We fought that battle.
Yeah.
Right, won, and now we're going back and, you know, having to fight it again, right? You know, the books that people are using, you know, they're banning books. Like, oh my God, like we fought that battle, right? You was some communist third world country or something like that, where they're banning books or whatever, where they're telling people, like, you know, we're going to control how you think, right? We're gonna control like what you can and what you cannot, you know, read. And it's troubling to me. It's troubling.
Man, we need to say that, that America's a place of freedom, and then here you are taking the freedoms away, and then the social and economic justice that you fight for. I can commend you for that, because that's the foundation for where we are right now, is the social, economic. And Devon.
No, I was just listening, and I'm thinking about how they're going back and trying to overturn things like Brown versus the Board of Education and all these other things. They're going back and trying to change history and erase everything and turn over everything. So, you know, we got to pay attention, pretty much, and take action, because they know that we're not paying attention. They know we're distracted by the technology and being influences and all these other things, and we're not putting that power to good use. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're not putting all that has come before us to good use. And to your point of, if we're doomed to repeat history, right? If we don't start taking some kind of action to make changes and really educate these younger people and pull them in to you know, to what's going on.
Right. And I remember the level of enthusiasm that everyone had when Obama ran for president.
Right.
It was a beautiful moment, a beautiful time, and after the election, it fizzled. Right. You know, we should have that with every election, right? Every
Right.
election, I treat every election like it's the most important election in my lifetime.
Right.
Because in some cases, in a lot of cases, it will be. If you're not careful and you don't get people into office that think, or share your values,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
mm,
And it starts
mm,
at the county level, the local,
absolutely.
the county level, and a lot of people don't understand it. With your city councilman, with your the city, the county level, your city level, your county level, and then it goes up the food chain with the state level, then now the district level, then the state level. So then you have to know all these different levels of how the system works. And one thing that I that you shared earlier, with being an educator, you taught people beyond the classroom, and that's great leadership, and you creating programs within your leadership to have something for the community to be passed on from generation to generation, for people to come. But when I look at the information that you're doing in the how it translates across the country, the impact that you have being part of a national organization, like you said, you're impacting millions of students all over. How do you as a leader say, "Hey," and get people on board to follow you, to say, "This is what I believe," and then sharing your vision? How does that happen for you?
So I think one, I think you have to live the life. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk, right? And if I'm talking about it, then I'm actually walking about it. A couple of things. One, and it's not always about my issues or my union's issues. I see my work as being something greater than. So sometimes, I think Jeffrey Osborne did a song. He said, "If my brother's in trouble, then so am I."
Mhm.
I will fight for his life, no matter where the struggle lies. And that's kind of my vision and where I see things. So when the Verizon workers go on strike,
Mhm.
because they're not being treated fairly, guess what? I'm a teacher. I'm going to go to the Verizon strike and I'm going to march that picket line with them. If our transit workers go on strike or whatever, guess what? I'm out there with my transit workers, and I'm on that picket line with them, right? Because it's their struggle today, but it could be my struggle tomorrow. And I think
Mhm.
we have to live that life, uh, uh, um, and to show people that hey, it's not about me; it's about us.
Right.
And as long as people feel that they can pick you off and pick you off and pick you off, that they need to see us all standing together, right? As one big movement. The other piece is I think when you give people the information, right, the unadulterated truth, in terms of some of this stuff, or if you're talking about people getting people to follow and stuff like that, just tell them the story. Tell them what the situation is. Tell them, what it could be, or share with them. Bring in people that know. I never say I'm the smartest person, out there. There's always somebody smarter, somebody that's done this stuff before, somebody that's walked this path before. Involve them, engage them in the conversation. If there's some issue about Social Security, I'm not the expert on Social Security, but guess what? I'm gonna get somebody to come in here and to talk to us and help us to understand, because part of it's educating.
Mhm.
Because I think when people know better, you do better.
Yes.
So if you educate the people, and that's the crux of the work. If you're educating them and teaching them, instructing them, and creating a space for them, not like I'm bringing you along and then sit in that corner. No, I'm bringing you along, but I want to hear what you have to say about this. I
Mhm.
want to know what you're thinking about this.
Yes.
What's your thought? We have to get into their thoughts. We have to get into their hearts, right? And Devon, I used to say all the time, that leadership is people, right?
Right.
Knowing people, understanding people, and helping them to attain what they want and what they need.
Right.
To me, that's what leadership is, right? And I think leadership sometimes is hard to define, because if you look up the dictionary, they don't
Mhm.
give you like, and to me, like a good example of leadership, right? What
Mm-hmm.
does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What is it? But if you could, I think leadership is people. And when you understand people and you get to know people and you help them attain what they want and what their needs are, that's leadership.
Mhm.
It's part of being an influencer, and it's part of inspiring. It's
Mm-hmm.
part of helping.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just having a conversation with my partner last night, and I was like, most people collect all these different memorabilias or their favorite team or whatever. I collect people and their personality and what they're capable of doing. I was like, that's my passion. I was like, the when you have the right people, because we're talking about business and how we're going to structure our businesses. And I'm like, my job, one of the things I learned from one of my college professors was never build a business for you to run it. Build your business so worst case scenario, you fall, you get into a coma. When you wake up, your business, the people that you put in place should have ran that business and have it 100 times better than if you were the one there running it. So I'm always paying attention to people and looking for the best people to surround myself by. They said you're the complement of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and we have to be conscious of that, because if you surround yourself by bowler, guess who by 5 bowler, guess who's going to be bowler number 6? You. Right?
Right, right,
That's what all your people you do is doing. So you
right,
want to surround yourself by people who's going in the direction that you want to go. You want to be a great leader, surround yourself by great leaders.
right.
Be inspirational, surround yourself by people that's inspirational. All right.
And that goes back to what I said before. Like, you got to be careful of who's in your ear,
Yep.
right? Because you have some people that they pat you on your back, but they don't mean you well.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be careful about who's in your ear and who's whispering and who's telling you telling you things, because everybody don't mean you well. And I think you have to develop a discerning spirit, if you will, to say, well, I hear what you're saying and thank you, but
Right.
I'm doing this,
But
right?
you got to learn to listen, right?
Right.
Because some people will have they'll have great advice or they'll have great knowledge, but their biases stop them from really um utilizing that knowledge or empowering that knowledge to the level it could be. I was having a conversation with a broker. I do real estate. I was having a conversation with a broker, and how he's a big broker in New York, and how he views the real estate. And I listened to him, and he gave me some very powerful advice from managing over 24,000 agent. Very powerful advice, but I'm listening, and the certain things he said, I know what he's done has gotten him to that level, but because of certain way he looks at things, it has him at a glass ceiling where he will not be able to break through. Right? He still believed that he must do it all by himself. Right? My mentors taught me. Right? My mentors taught me that wealth hides itself from those who believe they must do it all by themselves. Right? And wealth reveals itself to those who are smart enough to hire and train and build teams, right? So you gotta be able to listen and take the value and leave the rest of it and grow from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I consider everything to be a learning experience, right? Even sometimes those bad experiences, right, where we feel like, oh God, what happened here? There's a lesson to be learned there, and it's important that we sit down and we reflect and we reevaluate, what got us into that situation, how we handled it. But I think every experience, right, there's something to be learned, something to be gleaned, good, bad, indifferent, what have you, right? But I think there's some value into every experience that we have, and I think it's important that we just pause, and reflect sometimes about each of those experiences, right? Relationships as well, right? It holds true there, but with some value, right?
Right. And it's a mindset thing too. You have to have the right mindset, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because when you really think about it, is the way you think and look at the world that determine, like, we are exactly where we are today because of the decisions that we made, right?
Right.
Whether we turn left or right, we are exactly where we are because of the decisions we made. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to be conscious of that.
Right.
Know what I'm saying? And we always say there's no such thing as a failure. To what, and this is to what you've been saying, Mr. Harmon. Each failure is a lesson learned, right?
Right.
You learn from that lesson and you make slight adjustments and you become better. The story about, this guy, he was at NASA and he was talking to these guys at NASA, and they were talking about how the spaceship gets to the moon. And the techs at NASA, the scientists at NASA said, the rockets don't just shoot straight to the moon. The rockets is always going off course, and it has to constantly make slight adjustment to get back on course. And we have to be conscious of that's how life is. You have to make these slight adjustments to get back on course. You're always going to be next off course, and we can't be afraid of failure. Right? We can't be afraid to make mistakes. One of my mentors said, set yourself on fire and people will come from miles around to watch you burn. Right? So you have to be okay with not having all the information, but taking the action, right? And as you take the action, you learn from those mistakes you're going to make that make you better. I remember one time having a conversation with one of my mentors, and he was like, listen, you'll be all right. He's like, where you are today, you can get back here easier than the first time you got here. Because if they took away everything from you and left you with only your drawers on and put you in the street, you'll get back here faster. If you were married and your wife was to divorce you and take everything, you will rebuild your wealth quicker, because now you have the knowledge, you have the know-how, you have the connects, you know who to talk to. Before you didn't, and you still got here, right? Now it's going to be easier. So you got to welcome those mistakes. When you're in the learning process, when you're in the getting it started process, don't be afraid to take action. How many times we drive by cemeteries and we see all these, headstones. Do you have any idea how many great ideas is buried there that people never took action on? You understand what I'm saying? So you can't be afraid to make mistakes. You gotta make these mistakes. You gotta learn from it. But the one thing is, if you're passionate about what you do,
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, Mr. Anthony Harmon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Devon. That is so amazing, because my mentors shared the same thing with me. And one mentor of mine shared, he's like, if you have a belief system and you can believe other people to believe what you believe, then, what do you have to prove? Because the belief is there. And so thank you so much for the impact that you've made, the future generations of leaders with the Emerging Leaders Program that you created, because someone created everything that we have and everything that you're doing today so that you could have space, like you said, to be great. And thank you so much for your leadership, be it the the NAACP, the AMT. I have to do.
Here's a long list you're about to go down.
What you do for the labor unions, what you do for the AIDS foundations, what you've done as an educator, the monumental. I'm sure there's going to be a monument somewhere with your name on it, or some award in the leadership capacity for the difference that you've made in the lives of Devon and others. And so thank you so much for the contribution that you make to your community.
And thank you. And I really appreciate being here today. I will say that all those titles and all those positions, that they do come with sacrifice, right? And you have to say, how much am I willing to give up to get there and to do this? And sometimes it might mean sacrificing, hanging out with your friends. Sometimes it might mean, sacrificing, going to the party or going to the club. But it means, am I committed to this work, right? And I think that's what a lot of people have to understand too, because it just doesn't happen, right? You have to prepare for it, right? And it's and part of that means sacrifices, right? How much am I willing to scurry away, so that I can afford college later? How much am I willing to sacrifice my friends? Because if they're really my friends, they'll understand what it is that I'm trying to do, right? How much am I willing to sacrifice? Sometimes my family, I can't do all of it, but I can do some of it or whatever, right? And if they really, understand who you are, as a person, they'll get it. But I say that to say that, the leadership, it also comes with sacrifice.
Absolutely. One of my mentors said we must do the things today others will not do, so we can have the things tomorrow others
Right.
will not have. You understand? So those sacrifices are important. Got to
Hmm.
sacrifice going out to the club. you know,
Right.
It's Friday.
you know what I mean?
It's Friday. Yes. Thank you so much for your final words of wisdom. And Devon, are there any final words for you? I'm not sure if
Man, I just want to say when we talk about building monuments and stuff, I just wanted to add to that the work you have already done has built monuments in the hearts of all the people and the lives that you've touched, and in the minds, and not just the hearts but the minds also, because just be able to be privileged to interact with you and learn from you, and developing kind of under you. You know that has inspired me to the way I move, the way I interact with people, and the way I handle things. So never for 1 second, and I know you probably don't, but never for 1 second doubt the work that you're doing isn't very effective.
And I appreciate that, because that's always a question, right? You don't want your living to be in vain.
You're right.
So I
yes.
really appreciate, and I really appreciate seeing, like, Devon and you, and you and some of the others, and the work that you're doing.
Mhm.
I think of Nadir and
Yeah,
George,
George and all of them,
Veronica.
right?
I mean, there's a whole
Mhm.
slew of you guys or whatever that really make me feel proud. Just having to play, as I said before, a small part in your development and in your lives. And thank you for allowing me to do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
but what's small to you is huge to others. So just know we appreciate you.
Yes, and as the great scripture says, let your light so shine that men may see your good works. So thank you so much, Mr. Anthony Harmon, for letting your light shine.
Thank you
Absolutely.
all.
All right. Take care,
Have a
guys.
good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night. Thank you so
Bye
much
bye.
for joining us for Power Fridays Live, as we'll be here each and every Friday night at 7 p.m. Be, do, and have the greatness that you desire, because the greatness is in you. We'll see you next Friday night for another episode of Power Fridays Live. Thank you so much and have a great weekend. Take care and be blessed.